because he can't take, because rook takes f7, I get a lovely, big passed pawn there. But also, if I can get away with c7, I had an opportunity for such a pawn, which, although it seems easy that black's going to blockade that pawn on c7, it's going to be a constant nag and insecurity that if I can ever unblockade it when it reaches c7, then that will spell the end of the game. So that's something to bear in mind, that even, these advanced pawns are very handy. I also stopped any counterplay now with him playing h4, playing h4 myself. So he doesn't really want to take on c6. And now this is the pressure mode. I start marching my king into the game. But first I play the c7 as I mentioned. So we see a king march now to g5. And I'm almost threatening in some variations. Rook takes g6 and f7. But at the moment his king would be able to take on f7. Otherwise I've got bishop takes e5. So it doesn't quite work at the moment. Rook g6, fg. f7, he actually just plays rook f8, and there's no time for bishop g7 because let's just show you what I mean. In this position, instead of, if I had done rook takes g6 here, fg f7 doesn't work because he just has rook. Actually, it does work in this position, apparently, because say rook a8, Rybka's suggestion, is he now threatening king takes f7? That's the big question. Apparently he's not even threatening that, because here king d5, so the king's marching in to help this pawn, so even this is winning. I hadn't seen this variation, so apparently this rook takes g6 was on even in this position. What I had played was just systematically increase the pressure, which to me was more intuitive, and obviously I didn't see that variation of just being the exchange down, but with the king marching. But after a5, so let's go back to the game. I play now king g5. Apparently rook g6 is possible here. Let's look at it here. Fg, f7. I would have thought rook f8, but even in this position, apparently king g5 is better for white, because king takes. And I'm not sure I believe this. b4, a4, king h6. Is white winning this? I think Rybka might have got it wrong on this occasion. So anyway, I just systematically just increase the pressure for a little bit more. What I do is play king g5. And now bishop f4, because I have a new plan that if I can play bishop d2, provoke the pawn move forward, then I'll have bishop b4 to e7 to d8. There's a side effect of this plan, as we'll see though. Bishop f5, bishop d2 provokes a4, and that is a useful square now, b4, if I can threaten to get the king back to b4, as we'll see. So in the game I move the bishop back to f4 because I changed my mind about this bishop b4 plan. I don't think it's that effective here. Well, actually apparently it is okay as well, this plan. So this would have been fine as well, this plan. But anyway, what I did was actually to play bishop e5. So get back the position we already had, but it's got a major improvement that I can threaten to march the king now to b4 because he's just played a5, a4. So bishop d3, king f4, and he plays bishop g6. And now after king e3, he did a major mistake now, which makes even the calculation for me simple to understand. That rook takes g6 is finally very clearly on here. So I was going to continue with king d2 to c3 to b4, but now just rook takes g6, and it's very, very clearly working, because after fg f7, if he plays rook f8, I just have bishop g7. So if he takes now, then queening the pawn. So he resigns basically after this bishop g7, I believe. Let's just check that. Or is it actually he just resigned after f7? So it was quite an interesting game, I thought, with an interesting fantasy variation. Let's have a look in that game in overview and summary. So it was a much longer game than the one on the Monday, which was, he played an opening blunder. So this is the fantasy variation. So you might want to consider this against the Caro Kann. There's about 200 games mentioned on chessgames.com, so it has been played a little bit, And you know, some creative grandmasters, I believe, like Hodgson, have played it quite a bit. Hodgson, who, by the way, you know, he's won the British Championship a few times, and you know, he kind of likes these novel, you know, opening surprises. So I go for the dark squared bishop, especially after provoking g6, and I go for it in a kind of potentially unsound way. Perhaps bishop g5 is the clearest cut. I just offer the exchange to get it more rapidly. And we see here that after bishop c4, in theory, apparently, he made a big mistake now with bishop a6. He should have just castled. Would have been, according to Ribka, much better than bishop a6. But I played perhaps an inferior move. Instead of taking and then d5, just trying to rip open the centre, I played bishop b3, and we have an interesting game emerge where he's able to castle queenside, so his king gets out of trouble. But I thought, at least if I can get the bishop and queen working on a diagonal, then I'll justify that exchange sack. So after this knight c5, I did start to get a lot of big compensation now for being the exchange down, especially this knight coming to c5, and then once the queen got active, again it's a big advantage to white. So I win my exchange back, and the endgame, which he thought might offer, you know, salvation with the opposite coloured bishops, proved, you know, it's far too much pressure for black to try and hold, especially like 2 pawns down. These blockades are a bit loose on my pawns, on my f6 and c7, so there's the constant threats, you know, rook takes g6. But I played maybe slower than needed, just provoking this a4, but it did the damage, because, you know, once his king was lured out, then rook takes g6 became very, very clear cut to play. So this was the finish with f7. I hope there's something instructive in there, especially, you know, maybe the opening. You might try that novel fantasy variation with the early f3. Other stages of the game also, that they might be sort of interesting. And I think there's also this idea that, you know, if you try and play the best moves in the position, I think that implies being able to throw away any preconceived plan you have, just to look at the position, exactly what you have, to find the exact resources. But it's difficult, you know, if you're not constantly calculating the variations, it's difficult to play very precisely. I mean, it could also be very tiring, so I'm not sure. It was just, you know, a practical, hard-fought game at the end of the day, with intuitive plans. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.